If you know how to practice properly or woodshed, then you can play any piece of music you want, no matter how difficult or fast it is. In this video, I'll highlight 10 steps you can take to learn any piece of music. Step 1 is to choose a difficult passage. This should be short, so if you have a really long piece with a lot of difficult sections in it, just pinpoint one that's really giving you trouble. Then you can break down that passage into tiny little sections and tackle them one at a time. For this video, I'm going to use Sorcerer's Apprentice merely for the fact that it's on my music stand anyways. I need to woodshed it for orchestra rehearsals and concerts this week, so I thought it'd be a really great way to show exactly what I would do when I'm learning something really difficult. Step 2 is to find the 2 hardest notes in the passage. So these are the 2 notes that are going to give you the most trouble when you're going through this passage, the ones that you're most likely to flub or your fingers are going to get kind of sloppy, and only start with those 2 notes. If they're at the start of the difficult passage, that's fine. You can start at the beginning, but if they're at the middle or at the end, then you want to start there and then we'll work our way out from those 2 notes. I've chosen to start with the high A and G. Anytime I go through this passage, this is the most likely place that I'm going to mess up. So I'm going to start here so that it gets the most practice out of any of the notes in the passage. Step 3 is to pick a tempo. This tempo should be so slow that you can easily play the 2 notes that you've chosen over and over and over again without any mistakes, without any tension or problems. So it's going to be quite slow. For this section here, I've heard recordings with dotted quarter up to 130 even. It's very, very blazingly fast. So I'm going to do it much, much slower. I'm starting the metronome at 55, and my good old-fashioned Dr. Beat can put on the triplets. So this is what 55 in triplets sounds like. And that's where I'm going to start. Step 4 is to practice those 2 notes at that tempo over and over and over again. This is the tedious part, but this is the part that works. So you're going to play those 2 notes so many times that it literally feels like second nature. You have no tension in your fingers. You could play it basically in your sleep. Okay, I might even do that for longer than that. I just want to make sure it's absolutely there. Step 5 is to add more notes. So keeping the metronome at exactly the same tempo, we're just going to add 1 note before or after those 2 notes that we already picked. So we'll have 3 notes in total, and then we're going to play those over and over and over again until, again, they're second nature. It should be boring. As a side note, when you're doing this work, you want to make sure that your tone is equally as good when you're practicing it as the relaxation in your fingers and in your embouchure. So we want to be reinforcing good habits. So if you're finding that you're cracking notes, or there's something going wrong with your sound, or maybe your articulation is too harsh, or there's something awry with the sound, the articulation, any aspect of the notes that you're working on, make sure you address those before you add anything else, or you start moving tempos, or you move on with this process. The sound is just as important at this stage as the fingers and the notes and everything else like that. Step 6 is to repeat step 5 until all the notes of the passage have been incorporated. Another side note, if you're finding any of this part difficult, then your tempo is too fast. Try it again and back off the tempo even more. Don't worry, you'll still get it up to tempo, and once it's up to tempo, it'll be even more in your fingers if you start it at a speed where you can do it without any tension. You're going to hear me saying that over and over again. Step 7 is to repeat steps 4 to 6 at a faster tempo. Be sure to repeat this entire process, starting again with just those 2 notes at just a few clicks faster than where you started. Again, do not move the metronome up until you feel absolutely sure that you can play the passage at this tempo with no tension in your fingers, no tension in your face, and no major mistakes that keep happening over and over again. A slip here or there is going to happen, but if you feel confident that you've got it in your fingers at that tempo, then you can move it up. So I started this at 55, I'm going to move it up to 60. If you're finding this video helpful and you want to know more about how to practice your technique, join us on November 22nd for our free class, Master High Register Technique in 4 Simple Steps. It's completely free. You just need to join our free school community, Fundamentally Flute, to gain access to the event. I'll have a link in the description. Step 8 is to simply repeat step 7. So repeat steps 4 to 6 over and over again, incrementally upping the tempo until you get it up to the tempo that you want. If by the end of this process you've learned the entire tricky passage, congrats, you're done. Over. If not, move on to step 9. Step 9 is to add more sections. So if you picked a longer passage of music like I did, now you're going to start and do this entire process again, steps 1 to 8, with another tiny part of the passage. You're going to learn each separate little section separately until the entire line of music has been learned properly. Step 10 is to put it all together. So you're going to start piecing these different little tiny sections that you've worked on together 2 at a time. So for me, I would start with those 2 bars that I've demonstrated. Then I would add the following 2 bars. Then once those 4 bars sound really good together, then I might start at bar 730 and do those 4 bars together until those 4 bars sound really good together. Then I would put all 6 of those bars together. When you're starting to increase the lengths of the passages, you might find that one of the ones that you've worked on starts to falter again. So you just need to go back and start doing some slower tempos. Maybe not the tempo that you started at, but slower tempos again, isolating the few notes that are tripping you up each time, and woodshed that part again. Then you can go back and start piecing those little sections together again. Once you've done that entire whole section, then you can start adding a couple tiny bars before that and a couple bars before that, and you get the picture. You're going to piece the whole thing together like a puzzle, and by the time that you have all of this up to tempo, you'll have put so much work and effort into it that it's going to be there for you even when you're nervous. It's going to be there for you when it counts. Here's some extra tips for you just to keep in mind when you're doing this woodshedding process. Only do this for 10 minutes at a time, max. For something like this with Sorcerer's Apprentice, it's so difficult. It's going to take me multiple 10-minute sessions to get through the whole thing and piece it together. But if I do anything more than 10 minutes, I find that my brain stops absorbing the material, I start getting more frustrated, my fingers start getting more tense, and I really just need a break. So if I do the 10 minutes, I take a little break, I do something else, something else that's not so technical, then I can come back to it later in that practice session or another practice session or another day so that I can piece it all together in just those 10-minute increments at a time. It's really going to depend on how difficult the passage is and how much time you've been given to learn it. Don't forget to take breaks. This work is tedious, it's hard on your body, and it's hard on your mind. So even within those 10 minutes, it's okay to take a break if you're feeling sore, frustrated, or tired. Even just some short stretches or some box breathing will help you to refocus. This kind of woodshedding is going to benefit you not just in the passage that you're working on, but for all of your technique across the board. You're practicing in a ton of relaxation instead of tension, and you're reinforcing all these good habits and correct notes. It's boring and it's tedious and sometimes it's really hard, but if you keep it up, you're literally going to be able to play any piece that you want.